Look at who joined us today. Bro, you're looking skinnier, bro. I see it, dude. I see it in your face. I was going to tell you on the media and just DM you. Be like, man, he's thinning out, bro. Good for you, man.
I still got a goal to get to 190. So I'm at 198 as of right now.
Solid, man. Good for you. So what we're going to be talking about today is getting offers accepted. And the reason why this is so critical, I'm preparing for... coming out to spend some time with you and our boy, Angel Garcia. And we asked for stats, right, for the slide deck. And in your geographic area, which is very similar to areas around the country, it was wild, dude. The sales from 2021 in June to 2024 in June, they went from like 7,500 to like 4,000 and change. It's a 58% drop in sales, which is wild, right? And what's interesting too is that the inventory stayed about the same, during that whole time frame. So we have very low inventory and we have less transactions happening. I guess if you could, Jose, walk through the beginning of that conversation, which actually starts with the listing agent. Like walk through that conversation and how it begins.
Well, what I wanted to do as well too is, now that obviously buyers agents are going to have to get buyer representation agreement signed, one of the big questions that a lot of agents are asking, like, okay, what value proposition could I provide to my buyers? So this spun off last week's episode where we talked about that at the Morales Group. One of the value propositions that 90% of the time, whenever we submit offers, we get those accepted. Now, when I make a claim like that, people are like, oh my God, like, how is that even possible? And what I would say is that the way it's possible is by following a process. And today we're going to be teaching you guys that process to get more of your clients' offer accepted. Because if you make that one of your value propositions where you have a process for getting people's offers accepted, it makes you more valuable in the marketplace. What it also does is it makes it so that if somebody's struggling to get an offer accepted, you can approach them with confidence and be like, look, like, I know you've gone the last 6 offers rejected. What if I had a proven plan for helping you get your next offer accepted? Is that something that you would be open to?
Right.
And we're not in an exclusive agreement with another agent or anything like that.
Exactly. So being that we're going to have to list buyers, us as listing agents, we would go in and give a kind of a value proposition as to why it would make sense for someone to hire us versus someone else. And part of that value proposition, which we discussed last week, is, hey, my list to sales price ratio. So meaning the ratio, the difference between what we list the property for and what it actually sells for, what the average is in the multiple listing service and how we actually get, more than that. Well, the same is true now. If you're going to be listing buyers, part of your value proposition can be offer to offer acceptance ratio. And that's what Jose's saying here, that it's a way to actually differentiate yourself from other agents.
And this is what I would say to you. Like, look back at the last 10 offers that you submitted with the client. Look back, and then how many of those 10 offers did you get accepted? Meaning if you went 10 for 10, you were great at this process already. There's a very high likelihood that we're following a very similar process. If you are 3 out of 10, where 3 of them got accepted, there could be some work that needs to be done. And this would be an episode that you want to watch until the end. So this is kind of what I ask agents. So let's say that your buyer sees a property, they like it, and then they ask you, Jose, what should we submit an offer at? Now, what most agents do at this point is they're like, well, it's listed at 800. Submit at 820 because I think that there's going to be a lot of competition. Or what most agents do is they'll say, well, it's listed at 800. The last model match sold at 820. So come in at $820,000. I think that if you're approaching it from that manner, you are doing your client a disservice. And I'll explain to you why I believe you're doing your client a disservice. What if the marketplace is going up like this, like it was in 2021, where the market is going up? Are comps a good indicator of what this property is going to sell for? Like if something sold 3 months ago and it sold 3 months ago and the market is going up because of low inventory, is that going to be an accurate way of telling them, hey, submit at 820 because the last one sold at 820 3 months ago? Probably not, right? Mm-hmm. because it's going to be outdated information. So what I teach our agents is whenever somebody asks us that is a really good question. Let me talk to the listing agent. Let me try to find out some information to see if they have any offers. If they have some offers, what range are the offers in at? So that way I can make a proper recommendation. Is it okay if I get back to you with that information? So instead of verbally vomiting on them, oh, you should come in at 800, you should come in at 810, you should come in at 815. No, what matters is what is on the table right now, and that will let you know what you need to come in at. Let's say you take the first approach, oh, come in at 820. Because you didn't talk to the listing agent. Let's say the listing agent already has an offer at 840. What are the probabilities that your offer is going to get accepted in that situation? Hold on. Look into my eyes.
Hey, I love it, bro. He's taking a cue from me. He's like, look into my eyes. The chances are 0. Let's go.
It's nothing. You're not going to get your offer accepted. So for you to give that advice without having done any homework, it's almost like, I look at it like, what's it called when a doctor performs bad surgery? It's
malpractice.
Like malpractice. It's almost like malpractice because you're not helping them get the outcome that they want. Now, think about this. Let's say that the first thing you tell them is 820, and then you go back to the listing agent and you find out that the highest offer is going to be 850. How difficult is it going to be for you to get them from 820 to 850 when you told them that 820 was a good offer and you told them that's where what the property is worth? It's going to be extremely difficult for you to do that. So instead, talk to the listing agent.
Yeah, it's 100%. So prior to giving any guidance, and this goes back to what I've been harping on, and I was preparing today, Jose, for our leadership retreat that's coming up in the Dominican Republic. It's going to be dope. And one of the things we're going to be talking about, and I'll be teaching on, is like story brand. And I think what happens here is that a lot of agents try to make themselves like the hero. Mm-hmm. When the hero is really the client, you're just a guide. So prior to giving any guidance, it's like, well, let me go talk to the listing agent and find out. Obviously, we're going to fight for you tooth and nail to get you the best possible terms and conditions. They're going to be kind of the best source of information in terms of if there's any leeway or things of that nature. And then I'll get back to you. Now let's go from that, because that's the bridge, right? Like that ends the conversation that you're having with the buyer. Now we're having a conversation with the actual listing agent. So talk to us, Jose, about how that conversation goes.
So basically, I'll call the listing agent. I'll be like, Mr. Agent, Jose Morales here with eXp Realty, calling about your property on 123 Banana Street. I'll be very brief and straight to the point. I know your time is valuable. Are there any offers on the table? Mm-hmm. And then they may say, yeah, there's 3 offers on the table right now. Great. Have you already presented those offers, or are you, or if not, when are you planning on presenting those offers?
Now tell me your logic behind that questioning. Why are you asking that question?
Well, I want to know how much time I have right off the bat, basically. Like if I've already presented the offer, I want to know if it's too late for me to submit an offer or if I still have time.
Got it. Basically. So really that question for everybody listening, and the reason I knew why, I just wanted him to say it out loud. The reason is because it's around timing. So where are you in this process? Have you presented any offers? Do we have an opportunity to present? Like, just where are we in the process? Good. What's the next question that you'll ask?
And it's not in a specific order that I asked them, but if you're part of our eXp Elite Builders, I actually have like 50 questions that you can ask. It doesn't mean you're going to ask, basically, but that you can ask to basically try to find out as much information about the property. So like, let's say that they say, no, we haven't presented the offers, but we're presenting tomorrow at 5 p.m. Fantastic. Just out of curiosity, do you have any offers above X? Like, so let's say it's listed at 700. Because they have 3 offers, I'm assuming that they probably have offers above the asking price. So I'll say, hey, look, do you have any offers above 720? Basically. Now, if they have offers at 720, now I know that 700 is out of the picture and that the offers are above 720. So I may say, just out of curiosity, do you have any offers above 740? No, I don't. So what does that tell me? It tells me that the range are between 720 and 740,000. Now, I may ask them and be like, look, just out of curiosity, how many of the offers are above 720? All 3 of them are above 720. So I'm like, okay, Okay. And then do you mind me asking, for the highest offer, what type of financing does the highest offer have? Well, the highest offer has conventional financing, or the highest offer is actually cash. Okay. Just out of curiosity, is the highest offer contingent upon selling their property? Okay, just out of curiosity. So I start asking questions, and the questions that I ask are tailored around finances. So let me actually see if I can pull up a document, and maybe you can fill in the meantime, Aaron. So I have a
Yeah.
document as to like what.
Well, what I see you doing there is it's very intentional and it's very purposeful. So you're asking questions around time and then asking multiple questions to get an idea of range as far as what is it actually going to take in the form of an offer to increase the probability that your buyer's offer will be accepted. That's what I see.
100%. And then this is the way I describe it. Imagine playing poker and knowing what all the other players have. If you know what all the other players have, it would be so easy for you to win at poker. And the reason it would be so easy is because you know when to bet and you know when to fold. It's the same thing whenever you're asking the listing agent for information, because if you find out the entire picture, like, okay, there's 3 offers. 2 of them are conventional financing. One of them has 20% down. The other one has 3% down. What type of contingencies are important to your client? Meaning like inspection, appraisal. Have any of them removed the inspection contingency? Have any of them removed the appraisal contingency? Now what you can do with all this information is you can strategize as to how to submit the most competitive offer. Are any of them offering a rent back to your client? Like, what is important to your client? What is your client looking? Does your client have any preference between a conventional offer and an FHA offer?
Wait, time out. So as you're saying this, I'm seeing on Instagram, Hide YNY said most agents won't answer any of those questions. So let's talk about getting pushback there. So let's say you start to ask and they're like, come on, Jose, I can't tell you that stuff. Like, how will you handle that?
So you're right. You don't have to tell me that stuff. You can tell me that stuff if you want, and then I'll transition to something else. I'll ask them a different question. So most of the time when they tell you about that they can't answer that, it's mostly related to price.
Yeah.
When they tell you that, most of the time it is. So what I do is I basically hit a dead end. I'll say something along the lines, well, look, you technically can. I understand that you're choosing not to, and I respect that 100%. Just so you know, the reason I'm asking this is my client really wants this property. My client is reaching out to me 3 to 4 times a day telling me, Jose, I need you to get this property for me. Aaron, have you ever been in a position where your client is just like, this is my dream home. Like, I need to get this property. Have you ever been in a position like that, Aaron?
I have, yeah.
So I'm not trying to obviously get you in any sort of trouble. I'm not trying to be pushy. I just have a client who really, really wants this property. Just out of curiosity, like, which escrow company are you, do you want on the offer? Just out of curiosity, do you, should we ask for termite? Just out of curiosity, how would your client feel about home warranty? Just out of curiosity, what would be an ideal close of escrow time? And then I've asked a couple questions. I've let the guard down again, and then I'll recircle back to price.
Yeah, and then
but I'll ask price in a different way now. So like, if I ask you the same question twice, Aaron, and you reject me both times, does that feel like I'm being pushy? If I ask you the same question twice, the same exact way, it does. And it also makes it seem like you're not listening. Not listening to me, because I asked you the same question twice. So the problem is that once agents hit that point and they get rejected, they don't know how to ask the same question in a different way. Therefore, they don't want to ask the same question again. So they basically stop asking that question. Right. But what's a different way of asking for price?
Yeah. Well, and you go ahead.
Aaron, if I submitted at $750, would I be the highest offer?
Yeah. So you just asked it in a different way. And what's popping into my head is like, it's the same thing when you ask a seller. It's like, did you have an idea at all of realistically what you were thinking in terms of price? And like, well, why should I tell you that? I don't want to tell you that. It's like, well, my intention we're doing the exact same thing. And I want everybody to understand this is the exact same skill set. He's just applying it to buyers, where it's like, well, my intention in asking is not to be nosy. It's just to kind of gauge your expectation. Sometimes what people want and what's realistic, sometimes those are different. So I'm just trying to see where you're at with that. And I'm wondering, because I'm looking here at one of these online sites that give estimates of value, and they're saying around X. Is that in alignment with what you were thinking? So to Jose's point, if he would have said to me, he says, wow, I'm not going to tell you that, and I just asked him the same question again, that's it.
I would get rejected again, and now it feels like
now they're mad.
Like they're not listening. Now they're mad.
Yeah. Well, there's this thing called the internet, and that's come around over the last 20, 25 years, and now people have access to data and information. They probably know more about home values than most agents do. So the way that I ask that question is like, Jose, you strike me to be someone who's pretty savvy. So I'm sure you've been online, looked at some of these sites that give estimates of value. So I'm wondering, did you have an idea of realistically what you were thinking in terms of price? And it's like, yeah, and I'm sure you've been to some of these sites. Notice I'm not mentioning names because those guys are trying to eat our lunch, so I'm not going to give them free promotion. They give estimates of value. So did you have an idea at all of realistically? Now, the reason why I use that specific word is that everything about after the word realistically has to be realistic. And they're going to tell you something. It's either going to be a variation of a few things. One is going to be like, yeah, we were thinking this. Or one is, well, I kind of want to hear what you have to say first, right? So it's kind of a variation of a few things, but that's really the only responses that you're going to get. I want to hear what you have to say, like that sort of thing. So let's say they say to you, well, yeah, we were thinking this. Okay, great. And I appreciate your willingness to share that. My intention in asking is really just to gauge your expectation. My goal and objective, provided the opportunity, is to help you maximize value and get you every penny possible. I'm also of the mindset, Jose, I'd much rather earn your business with integrity, being honest and straightforward about what's reasonable and realistic versus promising you something I know is not going to happen and not be able to deliver. So in preparation for us connecting, myself and team and staff are going to be doing a lot of homework, and we're going to send you an email to your email address. And in that email, amongst other things, will be an updated market analysis that I'll bring with me during our time together. And what we'll look at is what's active on the market right now and not selling with pictures so we can compare apples to apples. Then we'll look at what has sold and closed most recently, because of course, as you know, what something's worth is what somebody's willing to pay and what they had to offer and how much they got. And from all of that information, we're going to determine together as a team, not a pinpoint to the penny in terms of price, but instead a very tight, realistic range as to what would be reasonable. Does that approach make sense to you? And they're going to be like, yeah, makes perfect sense. And also what I'm doing there and how I'm structuring that, I'm including them in the decision-making. I think the training and what people would receive previously was like, I know and you don't. But that exists for a world in which consumers don't have access to data, where I can go in and be like, I know and you don't. And that's not the world that we live in now. So instead, this approach is very much so coming from a place of inclusion. It's like, look, this is your property. I know you have access to data. I know you're checking these sites every day. So what we're going to do together as a team is we're going to look at this data, and as specialized knowledge becomes, like, as information becomes free, specialized knowledge becomes more valuable. So I'm here just to help you to interpret and to consult. And ultimately, you're the boss. You'll decide how we wish to proceed, and whatever you decide, I'll support you.
Agreed. And then when you're digging for the price, just know that they don't have to give you like an exact number as to what they want to list it at. You just have to have some sort of indication as to where they want to be. Meaning, like, if they say, well, look, my neighbor's house sold at 700,000. I think mine's better, so I'm thinking higher than 700,000. Boom. You've got some indication as well too. And then also sometimes what they'll say is, and you kind of covered this already, they'll say, well, we want to hear what you have to say about price as well too, and what most agents typically do is they'll say, well, like, as a professional real estate agent, I study homes and prices every day. Therefore, I assume that you'll list with me at a price that'll cause it to sell. So what price won't you go below? And the problem is that as soon as you say, like, what price won't you go below? Like, imagine being on the receiving end of that. Imagine you are the person that they're like, what price won't you go below? And it's like, well, I thought you were my fiduciary. I thought you were my real estate agent. I thought you're trying to help me get top dollar for my property. Why do you want to know what price I won't go below? And it creates like this like mixed messaging where like you're telling them that you're going to help them and you're telling them that you're going to help them get top dollar. And then your messaging over here is like, well, what price won't you go below? Like,
yeah. And I led with a question of, you're going to listen to me when I see you, and what price won't you go below? It's very clear what the intentions are behind that, which is like, this is about me, and I'm interested in like, what's the lowest amount that you're willing to sell the property for, instead of coming from a place of contribution, which is like, look, we're going to look at this together as a team, and I'm going to give you some options that you have at your disposal, and whatever you decide, I'll support you 100%. I want you to know that our interests are in alignment. Obviously, we get compensated more the more we help you sell it for. At the same time, again, I'm committed to earning your business with integrity versus promising you the moon and not being able to deliver. Does that sound fair? And they're like, yeah, that sounds super fair. And now we're like in alignment, right? It's kind of like if I came up to you and you were, I don't know, selling your car or something. Like the first thing I said to you was like, hey, what price won't you go below? It's like, screw you, buddy. Like, what do you mean? What price won't I go below? Now it's very clear to me, like you're trying to like take from me instead of trying to contribute and add value to me.
Yeah. And then there's also more basic ways of asking for price. Like a very basic way is like, or Aaron, when I see you, how much did you want to list your home for? It's very simple. It's like, and this is the room. This is another room. Now in the room, we're focusing about price, and that's all we're talking about. And sometimes whenever they say, well, look, Jose, we actually would like to keep that information confidential. We want to hear what you have to say first. We're going to take what you tell us and we're going to compare it to 2 or 3 other agents. Most agents will be like, okay, there are ways to handle that. And you described one. I'm going to share the way I handle it. I'll be like, well, look, Aaron, the reason I'm asking you about the price is more or less to gauge expectation. I want to make sure that you and I are on the same page. Let me give you an example. I had a seller last week tell me that they wanted me to tell them the price. We talk a little bit further. They tell me that they want $3 million for the property. I know realistically the property would only move for $1 million. I could tell you that over the phone, or I could tell them that over the phone. So in that case, it wouldn't make sense for me for us to meet. So I'm not asking what price do you want to tell you exactly what you want to hear and almost regurgitate that price right back to you. The reason I'm asking is just to make sure that our expectations are somewhere in line. So what were you thinking? And they're like, well, I was thinking somewhere around 700 to 750. Boom. That's all I need to know. I'm still, as the agent, I'm still going to do my own independent research. I'm still going to do my own market analysis. I'm still going to have my own opinion about the price as well, too. But at least I know what they're thinking now. And I want to make sure that they're somewhat in line. And like what happens? Like, okay, so what if they want $1 million and their property is only worth 750? Like,
we need to have a conversation before I come and see you. Like I would do a second pre-qualify and be like, hey, I'm, really doing my best to support, your expectation and what you want. At the same time, I'm not seeing data to, show me that that's an accurate assessment of things. So what I'd like to do is go over some of the recent sales in hopes that can help you to decide what you feel is best. Because again, as I mentioned to you in preparation for connecting, my job's to help you. It's never to talk you into doing anything. So and then you go over that information. Did you know that? And then say they're like, well, damn it, then I won't. And then what I would say is, so let's say you knew that through no fault of your own or mine, which is a key phrase, right? The marketplace is showing us that buyers and sellers have been agreeing for 750 for your home. And those recent sales were in the last 30, 60, 90 days. If you knew that that's what it would be required, around that price point is what it would take to actually get the home sold, do you think you would still proceed with selling, or would you try to figure out a different option, maybe renting it or staying put or something of that nature? And then they're going to tell me that. And I'd rather them tell me that before I get in a car and go drive them and talk to them for an hour about, the situation.
And this is one of those things that like, this might be one of the rooms that I walk back into, Aaron. I know that we don't move into another room until we're done with that conversation. And the reason I would say this is like, let's say that you look at the comps or the area really well, and you know that everything is selling around 700, but let's say they want 799. But let's say that you walk into the other room and the other rooms, they say, you ask them, would you describe your home for me? Meaning like, what is the condition of the property? And let's say that they tell you, I've got a guest house, in the back that brings in $3,000 of rental income? Is there a possibility now, if everything's selling at 700, that they could get that 800,000? So like, whenever they tell me the price there, like regardless of what the price is, I don't question it until I know what the condition of the property is. So for example, like there's still going to be a couple of other rooms that we're going to walk into. And then when I go into the condition of the property, I'm looking for like, hey, look, like, can we, because I remember like talking to a seller and the guy goes, yeah, I want like 800,000. I'm thinking like, dude, no way you're going to get 800,000. And then that's what I'm thinking in my head. And then he tells me I've got a guest house. I know that guest houses are extremely rare in that community. And he starts telling me that his house is fully decked out and that the guest house brings in $2,000. Now I'm like, there's a chance you might be able to get that 800,000, even though it's $100,000 more than anything that is sold in the community, because you do have that extra dwelling at the property. So that might, in my situation, I might want to walk back into that room. Now, if once they describe the home to me and there's not enough, like it's not there, then we can have that conversation as well too, as to, hey, look, I'm not finding any data that supports that price.
Agreed. And I think there's two rooms that we could potentially go back into. One is what you described as far as what the property has to offer. The second is his motivation. So I'm less like concerned about, what they're telling me price wise, as long as the motivation's strong, because motivation always fixes price. So if they were to say to me, I want 790, and I asked them in the motivation room, is it an option for you to not sell the home and still move? And they're like, no. Is it an option for you to rent the home and still move? And they're like, no. And if you don't mind me asking, was there any particular reason you were even considering selling? I have a new job and they want me out there in the next 90 days. Okay. Like that person's moving. So even though they're saying to me like this, it's not an option for them not to sell, and it's not an option for them to rent it and still move. So, we're still going to have a conversation with them for sure. So there's two rooms that you can revisit. One is what the property has to offer, and two is motivation.
And the key there, bro, is that motivation fixes price. A lot of people are like, no, like they want 800,000. The home's only worth 700,000. But if their motivation is strong enough, like they're gonna sell regardless, and it's either gonna be with you or somebody else. And motivation is really the key to taking a lot of listings. You want to get in front of people that are motivated to do something, not people like, yeah, if it happens, great. If it doesn't, then that's okay too,
Exactly. Yeah. So good. So then we have this conversation. If they push back at you, like we said, we ask them about price, like how did you, I'm sure you've been to some of these sites to give estimates of value. So did you have an idea at all of realistically what you were thinking in terms of price? And they'll tell you, and then you'll say like, okay, great. And then in terms of the property, have you done any changes or modifications to the inside that you believe would affect its value? Examples being like kitchen, bathrooms, or flooring. Because to Jose's point, what he just said, I need to know this information as myself or staff are doing a CMA, because that's going to allow us to get a realistic range. Again, not a pinpoint to the penny, but a tight range as to what's going to be reasonable or realistic based on terms and conditions. I mean, based on, features and amenities that the home has to offer. And then what I do is like, as we're talking about this, I'll kind of guide them. So in Florida, there's certain things they'll be like, yeah, this and this, like, okay. And how about in the kitchen, like countertops, cabinets, appliances, any changes or modifications there? And they'll be like, oh yeah. Like, okay, now how about flooring? Is it tile or wood or carpet? How about the bathrooms? Any like vanities, commodes, showers, any changes there? And I'll pull it up on Google Map and I'll be like, yeah, I'm very familiar with your community. I'm pretty sure like your property backs up to a body of water. And they're like, whoa, how'd you know that? It's like, I'm a magician. There's this thing called the internet, right? So, and then like major, like heating and cooling systems, the bones, like a AC, water heater, roof, any issues there. And in Florida, hurricane impact windows is a thing. So I'll be like, hey, do you have hurricane impact windows? No. Okay. And then the follow-up question to that is, do you plan on making any additional changes or modifications before I start to bring buyers through? And that's where we're like assumptively closing. Now we're not just gathering information, but we're starting to move the process forward.
The other thing, like the way I look at what you describe your home to me is I like to think about it like I want to ask enough questions until I'm able to visualize what their home kind of looks like from the inside, or what their home kind of looks like in my head. So I'll ask questions like, so for example, like I'll say like, okay, would you please describe your property for me? And then just like you, I'll guide them through different rooms. I'll say, have you done any upgrades? And or they'll say something like, well, yeah, my house is fully remodeled. Okay, great. When you say fully remodeled, do you mean that you've upgraded the kitchen? Yes, that means I've upgraded the kitchen. Okay, great. When you say you've upgraded the kitchen, does that mean that you redid the cabinetry, or does that mean that you repainted the kitchen cabinets and just resurfaced them? Because that makes a difference in our area. You know, if they spent $100,000 or $50,000 on brand new cabinetry versus if they just sanded the existing cabinets down, painted them, and put new doorknobs, that's a different style of upgrade. Okay, great. You mind me asking what kind of countertops you have? You mind me asking what type of flooring you have throughout the house? Sometimes they'll say like, okay, I've got this nice laminate flooring. Okay, you mind me asking what color is the laminate flooring? Because I want to see how modern or how outdated the property is going to feel. Because just because somebody has remodeled that property, that doesn't mean it's remodeled to today's standard. Meaning like I could have remodeled my property 10 years ago. What if I remodeled my property back in the 1960s, bro? In the 1960s, that was hip. Today, I don't think that's as hip, you know, today, although some of the things are coming back now, you know, like wallpaper and some of those things, but still. So whenever I am asking them, I may even ask them, okay, you mind me asking when these upgrades were done? Oh, they were done 15 years ago. Okay. If I start to see like colors like in my area, like browns or like tans, that's not what's in right now. So it may still sell for a really good price, but it may not sell like if they have the white kitchen, if they have the light gray walls.
People that made impacts. I mean, you know, Mike initially was impactful as far as just like, I learned the sales process. Anything by Jim Rohn. I learned a tremendous amount from him. Like a lot of my philosophy comes from Jim. Really, Tony Robbins, like a mentor. Tony Robbins worked for him for 4 years. I went to a couple Tony Robbins events that were really impactful for me. The two that were the most impactful were Date with Destiny and Business Mastery. Business Mastery really changed my thinking. He brought a technologist on stage and I saw like what was, you know, it was like wild what was already happening at that time. Yeah, and then the rest are like books, you know, like that I've never met them in person, but they've mentored me from a distance, you know what I mean? Like Robert Kiyosaki, with Cash Flow Quadrant or Rich Dad Poor Dad, that really had a big impact on my thinking. The book Quantum Leaps, or U Squared. It's not Quantum Leaps. Yeah, U Squared. You know, the fundamental understanding that harder work just leads to incremental gains, and that's the thing that those people in that group that you were in don't understand. Because harder work just leads to like you doing 10 more deals, 15 more deals, 20 more deals, whatever it is. But quantum leaps, going from one place to another, like 10xing, that comes from different strategies, different approaches, different techniques, different vehicles.
Right.
I was texting somebody today, like 3 years ago, I was selling 150 to 180 homes a year, working 70 hours a week, missing out on other areas of my life. And now I'm sitting in a Rolls Royce on my way to do an event, and I work Monday through Thursday and have 179 agents in the organization. It's because I changed my mind about certain things. Yeah, so there's been multiple people, and the majority of them have not been. I learned a lot from Pete Vargas about speaking, like, you know, like how to structure a talk, so that way it has a high degree of probability of conversion. I learned a lot from social from Ryan Pineda, because I've been in his Wealthy Creator program for the last, 8, 9, 10 months. And that's really helped. I've learned shit from Jose too, like watching him do what he was doing. It's happened both ways. And that's a really cool relationship, because a lot of times sometimes people's egos are too big where they don't allow that to happen. But yeah, I learned watching him with what he was doing in social, and that's what caught my eye, you know, because we're both very competitive. And I was like, this fucking guy, like, what's he doing?
You know, it's funny. There's a funny story. I was like, I think he had more followers than me at the time on social. Yeah. And then I told him, hey, bro, I'm going to catch up to you. And he goes, by the time you get to where I'm at, like, I'm going to be already a step ahead. And whenever people say stuff like that to me,
he gets charged up, bro.
Damn, bro. I'm like, it pumps me up for some reason, and it drives me. So then I started like taking social seriously. And I think that was one of the things that, like, I told him, I'm like, hey, look, I had already joined EXP. I'm told him, this is the vision. We're going to build a leadership team. and then I'm going to blow up on social media. And then a lot of people are going to be hitting me up, and I'm going to need leaders to basically help me build this large organization. And I think when he saw, and I don't know if this is to be true, when he saw that I actually started like following through on that,
Yeah.
he basically was like,
Okay.
he's serious about this, you know?
Yeah. Right. I think that's true.
Yeah. You think so?
Yeah, I think that's true. And then I just had to have a conversation with Lars where he could help me to understand the model, because I'm the type of I don't say I'm the type of person because I'm defining myself, but what's true for me is that like, I want to understand it. I want to like understand what it is. And I needed to make sure that it was not just good for me, but it was good for other people, for everybody. And once I got clear on that, then it was a million miles an hour. And through evolving over time and through all of the evolutions that I did, what it allowed me to do, another one is Hermosi. Bro, that guy's spot on, bro. He's fucking solid. He knows his shit inside and out. And his explanation of the opportunity ladder combined with the 4 forms of leverage that I learned from Naval in his book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, all of those things like coalesced for me to really be able to let go of selling real estate in high volume and put all of my time, energy, and effort into what we're doing now.
Things that compound.
Things that compound. So the only things I do now are things that compound, which are social and agent attraction, because they get bigger as time progresses. So this month, 35 agents onboarded, but I personally brought 4 to the company. Like imagine taking 4 listings and like, what is that? 31 more show up. That's dope, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think you can you can spend a whole career preparing for one opportunity. And I believe that's what I've been doing. I spent 17 years preparing to do this. But yeah, bro, I'm just like a shortcut to the library. Like, you know, all of these people are like, you know, imagine sitting next to Bill Gates and he's like, yo, I'm on a plane with you and I'm going to teach you everything that I know, all my mistakes, all my wins, and it's going to cost $35. Would you be like, nah, it's a little too much? One of my favorite biographers is Washington, A Life. Won the Pulitzer Prize for biographies. It's about George Washington. Bro, that shit was like, it's the biggest book I ever read. It was probably like 1,100 pages, but it was really impactful because I didn't really understand like why, you know, Washington's like, you know,
Washington.
Yeah. You read that book, you understand very quickly. You're like, oh man, this dude was exceptional, bro.
Why was he Washington?
His men like really loved him for a couple of reasons. One is like, he always had this, back to what we were talking about at the table as far as like responsibility versus rewards. He always had the same provisions as the men that he was leading. So if the men were sleeping in the mud, he slept in the mud. If the men were eating shitty food, he ate the shitty food. And he also always led from the front.
And he had a white horse.
A white horse, bro. So like everybody knew who the leader was. Like he wasn't hiding from anybody. And there was a story in the book, which is wild, where they were in a battle and like they had this commander went down. And when the commander goes down, everybody else like runs away. And Washington sees this from afar and he gallops over, like in the middle of a battle. He gallops over on his big white horse. So everybody knows he's the guy. He catches all the people retreating. He's like, where are you going? You need to go this way. And he leads them back into battle. Right? How many people that could have become an absolute leader, like an absolute like monarch, basically, have absolute power, abdicate, and give it back? They kept wanting him to be president. He's like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. Twice. Second time they had him, he didn't want to do it. They talked him into it, like, look, this shit's going to fall apart. The other thing that was interesting about, and then the third time he's finally like, no, it's enough. Like, I'm not doing this anymore.
They wanted him to be president for a 3rd term?
Yeah. A 4th. They wanted just to keep going. And he was just like, no, I'm not going to do it anymore. There needs to be new leadership, right? The other thing I thought was really interesting about that book is just how close we came to losing. Like how much of a ragtag group of like, they didn't have equipment. They didn't have like the right shit. Like they totally should have lost. How close it was to them losing. But it reiterates that everything rises and falls on leadership.
You know, it's funny. For a while, I never read any books. And I would just learn everything about books from him. I would just be around. I'd be like, oh, that like George Washington did this.
You get the cliff notes from me, bro.
I would. And it was helpful because it would change the way that I would think, you know?
Yeah.
Let's say we decided, because we're close to the beach, we're like, hey, let's take this affair to the beach. Now that's a very specific environment. And as such, it requires a very specific strategy. So what would be our strategy to ensure that we enjoy our time at the beach? What would we need to bring with us? Rella, what up? Towels? Swim trunks, don't want to be naked. What else?
Sunscreen is very important. What else? Food. What else? Beer.
Now, anybody besides me ever forget a critical component of that strategy when you went to the beach? Now, let's say we decided to shift environments and we said, hey, this beach thing is cool. Now I want to go skiing. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm going to put you all on a plane. We're going to take this to a ski lodge. That is a very different environment that requires a very different strategy and set of tools. So what would our strategy be for that environment? Overalls. What else? Snow boots. What else? Snowboard. What would happen if we tried to use the strategy for the beach for skiing? What would your experience be like? Not enjoyable, right? Now, here's what I see happening. I see agents utilizing a strategy or strategies that they were using 2 years ago in a completely different environment for this environment and wondering why they're not getting the same results. Well, I first started selling real estate in 2006. Now, that was a very specific economic and therefore real estate environment. Who here was selling real estate at that time? Oh, good. A good number of people. It was great. Why? Because they had a loan product that said, hey, you could basically say, I make 150,000 bucks. And they were like, I believe you. Right? That's unbelievable. And prices were going up 20, 30%. Everybody had FOMO, fear of missing out. They're taking out equity lines to buy other properties because they think it always, right? Okay. So I started selling real estate in 2006 after graduating from the University of Florida. And at that time in college, what the marketplace was giving me was condo conversions. Anybody remember condo conversions? What they would do is buy a 50-year-old pig, put some lipstick on it, and sell the units, right? To the parents and saying, hey, this is an investment. When your kids graduate, it'll be worth something, right? So I sold a lot of those. And then 2008 happened. What caused it to change was a financial collapse. We had huge, large financial institutions disappearing off the planet. In my state, 50% of everything on the market was a short sale or foreclosure. In my county, there were 22,000 properties on the market for sale. Prices going down in the opposite direction, 20, 30% per year. And I didn't know how I needed to change my strategy because I'd been using this other strategy at 26 years old, making 150,000 bucks thinking I'm the man. And then that strategy disappears and it's no longer applicable. So what I did is I got access to a guide. Call that person a mentor, a coach, who could point me in the direction of where the opportunities were. Because you see, at that time, something exploded in the market. What explodes when there's 22,000 properties on the market for sale? Expired listings. They were at the highest they've ever been in history. I grew my business by 25% year over year. And after 4 years was doing 100 transactions and 75 were expireds. I changed my what? Strategy. Does that make sense to you guys? And I believe that everybody here with the right strategy and knowing where to look can continue to, you could dominate any marketplace, including this one, which has changed radically. Has anybody noticed that the environment's changed radically? In preparation for coming, me and Joe were talking about it. I looked at numbers for the county where you guys do business. 2021, this last month that we just passed, there were 7,500 transactions. This year in 2024, there's 4,500. It's gone down 58%. I see a lot of heads nodding. That is an accurate assessment of reality. Huh? We're going to go over what's happening briefly, why it's happening, right? Approximately how long that's going to persist for. Anybody notice that like 5 months ago, everybody started posting that rates were going to come down 5 or 6 times in 2024? Hey, let me ask you a question. Have they? Not once. Okay? That's agents hoping that it gets a lot easier to do business. Right? So what's happening? Why is it happening? And then more importantly, what strategies are actually working? Is this making sense? So that way everybody can continue, because you guys are all top producers, you can continue to get your unfair share because it's not the fastest, according to Darwin, or the quickest, or the smartest, or the prettiest, or the one with the most followers. It's the ones that are the most adaptive to what? Change. Does that make sense? All right, cool. Who's up for this AI? I'm sorry, I didn't fly from Fort Lauderdale for that level of energy. Who's up for this AI? Okay, so what's happening? Well, who knows what percentage of homeowners have an interest rate less than 6%? 90%. We will shop for 3 hours to save $100 on Amazon. Why are we hallucinating that somebody's going to trade their 3% for 7%? Why would they do that? Only for a very specific reason. What I would call a life event. Who wants to give me examples of life events?
Divorce.
Divorce? What else?
Death.
Death. What else?
Retirement.
Retirement. Job relocations. Moving to assisted living facilities. Moving to be closer to family. Downsizing, right? So remember how I shared with you how I did all those expireds? What happened in 2011? Marketplace got good. What happens to expires? Do you think I just very maturely said, oh, I need to pivot and change? You think that's what I did? No, what do you guys do when you don't get what you want? You throw a temper tantrum just like children do. This isn't fair. Why should I have to change? But then I pivoted to probates. I live in heaven's waiting room, team. I have the largest elderly population in the country. And you know what that did? I went from 100 deals to 200 deals. All because I was willing to, you could just answer this yourself. Doesn't have to be out loud. We're all friends here. What percentage of what you're doing have you changed in the last 18 to 24 months? Be honest. Interesting. Is it mature to imagine that I cannot change and still get my unfair share? No. Essentially, I'm waiting. I'm praying to the real estate gods. Please change. Make sense? So that's actually what's happening. What's also happening is that volume, we went from 6 million across the country to 4 million transactions. And this geographic area, from 17,000, we just looked at numbers, to 10,000. Now, the question is, how long do we imagine that's going to persist? Anybody notice that economists rarely know what the hell they're talking about? On a regular basis, right? Well, the last time we had interest rates this high, the Fed funds rate, do you know how long it stayed that high? A decade. Let me ask you a question. Are you prepared for it to stay for a decade? Is your strategy appropriate to staying with this number of transactions for the next decade? No, I appreciate your honesty, right? Because I can't change it if I'm not aware of it. So that's what's happening, right? Now the question is how do I deal with it? Because I have two choices. You know what the first choice is? Stick my head in the sand. How many people know somebody sticking their head in the sand? Yeah, right? But they're still posting on Instagram. Hashtag blessed. Right? Which is ridiculous. I can stick my head in the sand or I can deal with it. You need an accurate assessment of reality in order to produce a good outcome. We just cast that, didn't we? Everybody clear on what's true? And your ability to deal with it is directly correlated with getting what you want. Who wants more deals? Yeah. I love it when people say, why'd you get into real estate? I love people. I'm like, that's disgusting. You haven't dealt with enough people. I love houses. I'm like, you know how many times I had to burn my suit because it was like a cat farm? We do this. We help people, but it's also to make money, right? So what's actually working? Well, let's logically think about this. How many people have noticed that there's less opportunities for listings? So what can we logically conclude about that? Every listing appointment you go on, you will more likely than not be what? Competing, right? So what would be a way to deal with that? Logically. Go on more points. What else? Let me ask a candid question. How many people here practice their listing presentation daily? Everybody here is apparently independently wealthy. Now, here's my question. Is that a realistic expectation in an environment with a lot less transactions? You think what's going to get it is you walk in, you're like, oh my God, you have a puppy, I have a puppy. Yay. You should hire me. That's ridiculous, right? That doesn't make any sense. So what's working are agents that are going on lots of appointments on a regular basis. Even though he's a top agent, you know what he does all the time? What do you think? Practices all the time. Do you think it's a fair competition when you go up against somebody who practices daily? No, it's not. Does that make sense? So that's one thing that's actually working right now.
What I would say as well too, just to add on that, and when I got started in the business, I struggled quite a bit. I went 6 months without a sale. I was a buyer's agent at first, and when I made the transition to the listing side, I kept getting beat out by Jim Sandoval, Eric Delgado, every single one of them would always take the listing, and I wasn't. But then Aaron asked me a key question just to kind of go on the skills. And what he asked me is hey, Jose Luis, what's your competitive advantage? He said, like, what makes you different in the marketplace? And I proceeded to say something like, oh, I'm honest. I'm like hardworking.
I put my clients
I
first.
put my clients first, things like that. And he said, Jose, that's what everybody does. Everybody's honest or supposed to be honest. Everybody's hardworking. Everybody is a good human being. He's like, if you're going to compete, you got to have a competitive advantage. And I listened to this podcast called Founders. And in that podcast, they kind of give like the story of like different founders that have founded different companies, like Jeff Bezos, Uber, just like different stories. And they go into like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett's strategy. Do you know what's one of the things that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger look when they're investing in businesses? They look for businesses that have a moat around their business or some sort of competitive advantage.
That's difficult to breach.
That's difficult to breach. So I asked Aaron, I said, what's your competitive advantage? And what he proceeded to tell me is like, I am the most skilled agent in my marketplace. People know when they're competing against me on a listing presentation that if I'm going on that appointment, they better bring their A game. And 95% of the time, I am going to win. He's like, I want to be feared where when people find out that they're going on a listing appointment against me, that they almost like psych themselves out.
Correct.
Like almost like, oh my God, like
I might as well not even go.
I'm going against Aaron.
Right.
And what I incorporated, and this is right next to you guys, I'm like literally like next door neighbors to every single one of you. I said, okay, that's actually a pretty good competitive advantage. I said, if I'm going to have a competitive advantage that's going to last, I said, what do I want it to be? So I adopted that mindset thanks to Aaron, where I said, all right, I am going to be the most skilled agent in my marketplace, knowing that when I go on a listing appointment and other agents find out that I'm going on a listing appointment, they're going to second guess whether they're going to want to go on that listing appointment. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I did is not only did I become very skilled, but I said, okay, how am I going to differentiate myself from other agents? So what I came up with was a solution-oriented approach. Meaning if I'm going on a listing appointment, I find out what the problem is and what they need help with, and then I sell based on that problem. So it's not like, okay, what do I offer to you? It's like, okay, tell me a little bit about what you're going through. I identify the problem, and then it's so easy to sell based on the problem. So like somebody's like, oh, like I'm having trouble getting my property ready for sale. Oh, I actually know great contractors that can help you get that property ready for sale. Someone's like, oh, I'm struggling, basically boxing up items. Hey, what if I told you I could send somebody to help you box the items? Somebody has a vacant property. I'm like, hey, what if I told you that I can stage the property for free? So I came up with a differentiation strategy where I came up with a solution to almost every single problem that exists. I challenge you guys to think about, okay, what is my competitive advantage here in the marketplace? Like what makes me different? And what's my value proposition to the consumers? That way, when I'm going on appointments, what's my competitive advantage?
So in an environment where there's less opportunities, one of the ways to deal with that is to become exceptionally more skilled. And that's one thing we could be working on, because when I asked how many people do that on a regular basis, there were no hands, okay? The second thing is this niche thing. So when I said that to you guys, everybody gave me the answers of the niches. Can I ask you guys a question? How many people have intentionally and purposefully tried to cultivate one of those niches? Death, divorce, job relocation, moving to assisted living facilities, like purposefully and intentionally. Yeah, one.
Me.
Guys, and the two people making the most money. Like, guys, like what I'm aware of, do you see? You can all tell me that these are the places I should be looking, but we're not actually doing anything about it, right? When I started probate, you know how much I knew about that? 0. And I went to the courthouse 6 or 7 times to figure it out. And it was a pain. And I was like, oh, I could be doing other things. But then once I figured it out, I started to call them and drop the amount of people I was calling for expires, because that source was dwindling. And within 3 months, I'm taking 4 listings a month. All because I had a willingness to change, right? So that's the second thing that's working, that is niches. And I know Jose, and that's one of the things he's going to talk about, is, you know, we are trained, because I think the loudest voices in the training community, and perhaps, and I mean this lovingly, older voices, are saying things like they're saying things like expired, for sale by owners, cancels, just listed, just sold. The 4 horsemen. But what that causes you to do is to think like a real estate agent. Do you know why these guys get so many leads? They don't think like a real estate agent. They think like a wholesaler or an investor. And if you want to see lists, those guys call 15 or 20 lists. They call Liz Pendis. They call people that are behind, that they have liens for 90 days. They call, and we'll go over that. But do you see my point? Is that if I got to go where the opportunities are, and in an environment like the one that we're in with less transactions, where the opportunities are the ones that are extremely motivated. Somebody says to you, I want to sell my house because I want to get more room for my dog's backyard. That's not going to cut it, team. They're not going to be willing to do what it takes. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, the next thing that's working, let's think about this logically. If there's less transactions and there's less people that are motivated, what we do as agents never changes. How much of it we do and how we do it is what changes. So if there's less opportunities, what would that mean for the amount of people I would need to speak to on a regular basis? Double or triple? Can I ask an honest question? How many people here have doubled or tripled the amount of contacts they're making? 2. And what's interesting is you guys have in your midst somebody who has a solution to that problem. Because he has this dialer that will allow you to make 50 contacts an hour. If you're a shitty marketer, you have to become a world-class salesperson. For 15 years of my career, because of the instruction I was getting, didn't pay attention to marketing at all, so I turned myself into the Michael Jordan of selling real estate. I could list 100 homes a year. I did that 10 years in a row. Did 200 deals a year twice because I didn't understand this. But if you understand this, I can make $1 million a year being a world-class salesperson. I can make $10 million a year doing this. So you just got to be all the way in, and you got to see the value, and you got to be willing to, because here's the other thing I'm noticing is that the barrier to entry is getting bigger. So it used to be you could just flip your camera on and talk, and that worked. That doesn't work anymore. You have to have captions. It has to be quality video, right? If you watch YouTube shorts, it's got to get attention. You have to edit it proper. Like, the barrier to entry is getting harder. And I think it's only going to increase. Because this gentleman said it's the new TV. I believe that that's true. But will you watch a shitty show on TV that has shitty camera and shitty lighting and somebody on there that's going,
"Hi, this is the 5 ways to do an inspection"?
You will not. Right. So and you can get into this inexpensively. If you go onto Fiverr, you'll find people who can edit your videos. And you have to spend a little on a camera. And it's consistency over time. So it took me a year. I went from 2,000 followers to just close to 10,000 now. I went from touching 8,000 accounts to 250, $250,000. That is 4 football stadiums worth of people watching me every month. I can sell lots of things, right? So you just gotta really buy into it. The tools that you need. You don't really need more than your phone. iPhones are ridiculous, right? But you need a camera, you need some lighting, you need a microphone. Stop shooting videos without microphones. They cost $25 on Amazon. It's a little lapel mic, you stick it here, it'll make you sound like a rock star. If your video is crappy, people won't watch. Doesn't matter if your audio is crappy, they won't watch. So you need a little microphone, it costs $25. You already have the phone in your pocket. You need ideas. Now, the interesting part about ideas is people think they have to create all this stuff. You don't, you could just document what you're doing. It's documentation. The way I started this is when I was setting appointments, I would just flip the camera on and record it. That's it. I'm not doing, you do cool shit all the time. Nobody can see you do it. Right? So flip the camera on, have the presence of mind. Oh, I can flip the camera on right now and just record this, right? And then I need someone to edit, chop, and post. If you're serious, if you want to go all the way in. Because there's some people in the room that still do it themselves. I'd say everybody in the room still does it themselves. Except people that are all the way in, which is like 3 in the room of everybody else. But you start to think with your DIY mentality, because 65% of us came from parents that live paycheck to paycheck, I'm going to figure out how to edit this myself. Good for you. And after 6 months and you post fucking very little, I'll be at like 20,000 and you'll be at like 300, right? So you don't need that much. Cumulatively, between this might cost $300 a month. Somebody to send you ideas, roughly, that could probably be included. The microphone and this. And then it's just consistency. It's volume over time. Most people don't produce 1% outcomes because they drastically underestimate the volume of activity that's required over an extended period of time. So if I told you you could get all the attention that you want, which equals, but you had to post 4 times a day for the next 10 years, would you do it? Yes. Yeah, you guys say that shit. Yeah. You can also, there's this thing called ChatGPT, where you could say, hey, act like a real estate agent, a top producing real estate agent in Plantation, Florida, and give me 10 videos that people would want to see. And it'll go, and then you could go, now act like Mr. Beast and give me the titles and the thumbnails for those videos. And it'll go, and you'd be like, act like a TV producer and give me the actual script for each one of those videos, and it'll go, broop. Guys, there's no excuse, none. It's just insecurity, fear, and I'm not all the way in. I don't understand its value because the things that you make time for things that are important. Do you brush your teeth every day? Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's important. You ever like, nah, screw that brush teeth thing. Do you do that with this though?
Yeah.
And the real reason so you tell yourself this story that it's all these other things when it really is you're just insecure about it. That's all it is, right? So here's with ChatGPT. I'm a residential realtor in city state with a YouTube channel. I create videos to educate people on buying and selling in blank. And I explain what it is to live in blank. Please write an 8-minute video outline for blank. It does it for you. Can it be any easier, guys? Now this is $1 million right here, okay? All the ideas you need for a whole year. What's the cost of living in Plantation, Florida in 2023? Pros and cons of living in Plantation, Florida in 2023. X things you need to know before you move to Plantation, Florida in 2023. Guys, this is gold. If you haven't taken a picture of this shit, like, all you guys are like, I would watch that shit, yeah. Does $500,000 get you in Weston in 2023?
Nothing.
Yeah. A shack, like an outhouse. What does X amount give you in sub-community? But this is, bro, if you do this, these are all your videos. And by the way, you could just interchange the year and repeat, rinse and repeat next year. Do you see? You have everything you need. But now it's just a matter of this, you declaring that this is important. And I get to make my favorite phone call.
Oh, man. Oh, it's my favorite.
Hey, Tom. Yep, it's Aaron here.
And I know they know. Fuck. Yeah, I just want to let you know I met with the Smiths and they decided to hire us. I'd love to have the opportunity to work with you. If you have a buyer, bring them by. But you could go ahead and cancel your appointment at 4. Bye-bye now. Come on, Aaron.